Hello and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with the Disability Policy for All. Today I have the great fortune to be interviewing Commissioner Hy-Vell Bloom, who is the commissioner of the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here.
Okay. And we'll be talking to her about what is her agency as well as the ADA. So, welcome again. The first question is, what is EEOC?
Okay, so the EEOC, as you correctly said, is the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And we all just call it the EEOC because that's obviously easier to say. The EEOC was created 50 years ago by the United States Congress when it passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the major Civil Rights Act that prohibited discrimination in employment on the basis of race, sex, religion, national origin, did not at that point include disability, but that law created the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to implement the law, to allow people to bring complaints to the EEOC. We would investigate them. We would try to negotiate settlements for people with employers. And then when the ADA passed in 1990, Congress gave the EEOC responsibility to enforce the ADA. So we started taking in complaints from people with disabilities who had experienced employment discrimination. So that's what we do. That's why I say on my Twitter feed that I'm a discrimination buster, because that's what we try to do at the agency.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, why is the EEOC an important agency related to people with disabilities?
Yes, so the EEOC is essentially the first step in the road to actually bringing your claim that you have been discriminated against as a person with a disability. And that may be that you weren't hired because you had a disability, right? You came to the interview and the employer didn't like how you sounded. The employer didn't like the fact that you were deaf or blind, right? Or the employer didn't like for me, I have a mental disability, anxiety disorder. They found that out, that they didn't like that. So if you were discriminated against in hiring, if you got hired, like, no one needs to know that you have some hidden disabilities, but once you got on the job, if you needed some accommodation, some change to allow you to do the job, and the employer didn't give that to you, you can come to the EEOC and bring that claim. And of course, if you are harassed on the job or you're fired from a job, again, you can come to the EEOC. Now, we get way more complaints than we have people to deal with them. That is the reality. We are underfunded, under-resourced, so we actually cannot help everyone, but we do help a fair number of people, often in getting settlements with employers before the person ever has to go to court, and sometimes we'll actually bring lawsuits against employers because of something they've done, some discrimination against a person with a disability.
Okay, great. With this month being an ADA month, which is very exciting, how is the agency enforcing the ADA? And can you give us an example?
So, I mean, obviously the fact that, we have Pride Month through June, and then essentially we have ADA Month through July in terms of anniversaries. Interesting, as a lesbian with a disability, it's sort of a perfect 2 months focus and effort. The agency, EEOC, has been very proactive in the last 4 years in explaining how LGBT people have rights under existing sex discrimination law. so that if you experience discrimination based on your sexual orientation or gender identity, you can come now to the EEOC and we will investigate your claim and potentially get a settlement for you. Over the past year and a half, we've helped a bit over 200 lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender people get settlements, get relief from the employers. So that's what we've been doing on that. On the ADA, disability cases, I mean, we bring a lot of cases, pieces of litigation, helping people with disabilities, but even more, we are helping people before they have to get to court. So remember, for LGBT people, we don't yet have an explicit federal law prohibiting discrimination on sexual orientation and gender identity like we have for disability. But we have this existing law that we're using in all these settlements. In disability, we have the combination of an explicit law, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we are using that not only in the court, but also before you get to court, with potentially some settlements and agreements. And let me tell you, no one likes to go to court. It's long. It's draining emotionally, right? To the extent that you can stop discrimination that's happened through an agreement or a settlement with an employer, how much better?
Okay, thank you. How can the EEOC help increase the number of people with disability to work again? And again, can you give us an example?
Right. So I think the EEOC has done two things. Certainly, these are two things that I've been involved with for the 5 years I've been here. One is fighting against discrimination, so that making sure that someone who now, let's say, wants to come back into the workforce has a disability. We have had cases where employers have refused to hire someone who's deaf, has refused to hire someone who's using a wheelchair, has refused to hire someone with an intellectual disability. Like, we actually have evidence that they refuse to hire individuals because of those disabilities, and we have come in and we've brought cases. We've sued them. That's what the law allows you to do. It allows you as a private individual to sue an employer, but the EEOC, as the force of the U.S. government, can also bring a case. We have done that in hiring. We have done that in firings of people, and we've done that when people can't stay on the job because they are not getting a reasonable accommodation. So that's one way to increase the number of people with disabilities who are hired. Fight, fight, fight against discrimination, right? The other thing that we started together with someone at the Department of Justice and Social Security Administration, which is now a full interagency effort that the White House has endorsed and is supporting, and we call it the Curb Cuts to the Middle Class Initiative. And that entire initiative is about getting people with disabilities, particularly people with significant disabilities, not just the hidden disabilities, but people with significant disabilities, to get jobs. And it's particularly, so it's curb cuts to jobs. So we have curb cuts to get across the street. Let's have curb cuts to get into jobs. And it's specifically curb cuts to the middle class. Because so often people think that if a person with a disability has any job, that's so exciting. Oh, you have a job. Oh, how wonderful. Even if it's not the job that meets the person's potential. So many people with disabilities are not only unemployed, they're underemployed. They're employed in jobs that do not match their potential. We want, through this initiative, having all these agencies working together, all of which have some responsibility for employment, work together so we make a real dent in the unemployment rate of people with disabilities. Because that unemployment rate is unacceptable.
Okay. I'm just amazed that after 25 years of this wonderful law, why that there's still the discrimination that we're having. facing?
Right. Well, I think one reason is that it's very hard to change people's attitudes and assumptions and misconceptions of what people with disabilities actually can do. So the law is one essential piece of it. Without the law, you're not even pushing people to try to change. Without the law, you don't have some people getting in the jobs in the first place, which is the best way to undercut a stereotype about what a person with a disability can do, is to have a person with a disability in the job doing it. And without the law, you don't have the pressure to have people hire people with disabilities. But that's not enough. I mean, you can have a law that says no discrimination, and people will say, oh, I didn't discriminate. I didn't refuse to hire that person because they're deaf. It's fine. I didn't refuse to hire the person because they use a wheelchair. It's fine. Oh, I had some other reason. And it's very hard sometimes to prove it. So you need to actually change people's attitudes so they actually feel like it would be a good thing to make my workforce more diverse and have people with disabilities. And in a sense, 25 years is it's like a blink of the eye. It's a short period of time, in a sense, when you're trying to change cultural attitudes. So I'm a complete optimist. That's how, I mean, I've been working with Congress for 20 years, and then here in the government. If I wasn't an optimist, I couldn't get up each morning and, keep fighting. So I think the law has helped. There's more to do.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else I have missed or that you would like to talk about okay.
No, I think you covered it quite well. I just want to say that I'm thrilled to know that this Tuesdays with Liz exists. I am planning to go on YouTube, not only to watch this episode. In a way, I don't need to hear myself talk. I want to go on Tuesdays with Liz and listen to everyone else who's been talking to this audience because they've been interviewed by you.
Thank you. And if you have any more questions about this or any other policy issues, please go to the AUCJ webpage and look for this week's In Break. And if you have any questions or comments about this week's Tuesdays with Liz, please leave them in the space below. Thank you. Hi.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye.
Excellent.
Bye.
Thank you.